I heard last Friday that my wife's aunt had been diagnosed with lung cancer and would be admitted to the oncology department of her local hospital that very morning. By afternoon, friends and family came to visit and reported that she was very genki. And genki is a good thing. It means upbeat, healthy, in good spirits and full of energy. I remarked that that was a good sign and went back to work for the day. At 8 p.m., when I arrived home for dinner, my wife sullenly reported that her aunt's condition had taken a turn for the worse, and she had to rush to the hospital while I took care of our kids. Saturday morning, close family members asked us to return to the hospital. Vital signs were weak. Doctors gave her 48 hours at best. By the time we got there, we found her whole family gathered around her fragile body, which seemed to have become incredibly pale in a matter of just one night. All was silent as we entered. Then, I heard her husband gently say her name, while reaching for her tiny old hands. As he did, the heart monitor flatlined, and a few flashing machines buzzed. No one gasped, no one reacted, no alarm sounded, and no doctors rushed into the room. She was 85 and had asked for a do not resuscitate preference should life support fail to keep her alive. In less than 48 hours, she had been diagnosed, admitted, and died with cancer. I didn't even know death could take hold that fast when cancer was reported. But really, what do any of us know about death? What do we think about death? How do we feel about death? Are we prepared for our own death? Do we truly understand and realize that it is one of the few aspects of life that we are all marching towards together, no matter what race, color, code, religion, or quirk we have? What about people who are in a country with a unique culture that differs in many ways from Western versions of the same practices? What are their views, thoughts, and ways of handling the inevitable, the final chapter, the bookend to our lives, death in Japan? So, my first encounter with death in Japan was not actually via human death. Thankfully, I guess, if that's a good thing, I'm not completely sure, but with the death of a pet. When I met my girlfriend, who I later married and she became my wife, when we first met, she had a very, very old dachshund. And it was near the end stages of its life. It had gone completely blind, could barely see where it was going or really even find the mat to go to the bathroom. And it eventually died from what we figured to be either blood or gum infection. And unfortunately, we spent a ton of money to keep this dog alive because we loved it, but there was just nothing else we could do. Even the vet said, sorry, it's best if we just let it go, put it down, and end its pain. And that's what we did. I think it had lived something like 17 years, so that's a very long life for a dog. It lived a long and good life. It was very pampered. I think both my wife and I made sure of that. And that was my first experience with a funeral in Japan. Now, it was an incredibly surprising experience for me because in America, all we do is we take our pet, we dig a small hole in the backyard, and we drop that pet into that little hole, and we usually pack it back with dirt. That's the end. Maybe you say a few good things about that animal, that pet. Some people might even go as far as to make like a temporary cross or something. Maybe some people make small graveyards for their pets, but I think that would be very rare. And that was it. We were done. In Japan, very different. In Japan, it was a series of things we had to do. Well, first we had to find a pet funeral temple or shrine, a shrine dedicated to pet deaths, which we did. We found one locally in our area. We traveled there for a small ceremony. I don't know how to completely describe this ceremony. It was very casual compared to some ceremonies that you have in Japan.
most deal with priests who go on to chant long, very complex and difficult, for me at least as a foreigner, to understand prayers. But with this situation, it was a old lady, not dressed in any sort of ceremonial robes, running a small section of a shrine, and she took us into a back room, and in this back room was tons of pictures of animals, just tons. I mean, shelves and shelves and shelves of people's goldfish, parrots, small dogs, kittens, cats, lizards, snakes, just anything you could have ever had for a pet was in there. Pictures of it, and next to it, ashes inside of an urn, and usually some kind of small toy or small thing that the animal liked. For a fish, it may be a rock from its little tank, or a dog toy that the dog used to bounce or squeeze or bite. I was amazed. This looked like an incredibly strange sort of store or shelving unit full of all sort of trinkets of death related to deceased pets. But I'm not here to judge, I'm here to look, observe, and report. And that's what I did, and I'm telling you now, it felt like a strange situation for a gaijin in Japan. Anyway, we brought our deceased animal in there, full body and everything, still in its basket that it had died in. And she brought it to the top of a little pedestal and a little altar on top of that, and set it down, said some Buddhist prayers over it, and told us everything was going to be okay, that his spirit was free now, and that he was happy and playing in the nirvana heaven version of Buddhism, Shintoism. And we went from there to take his body to the cremation, which was, it wasn't a room. Some places have a room, like for when we just finished burying my aunt, we had an entire giant, kind of almost like a cremation factory, but on the inside it was very beautiful, I have to say. They decorated it very beautiful. But this was a truck for the dog. This is for the dog. This was a truck that had a giant cremation tube connected to the back of it. I guess it could just pull up to any place that needed cremations. And the man there was very nice, very polite. He could tell we were in a lot of pain. I'm kind of getting choked up even just telling this story now. We were in a lot of pain. We were really upset about this dog dying. And he was like, just take it easy, just relax. Don't worry, this will be over with real quick. And he put the dog in there. And I remember thinking, well, that's a pretty short time, because he said, go ahead and just go take a walk and come on back about 20 minutes. We did that. And I thought, I didn't know you could burn an entire body and the bones that quickly in 20 minutes. Well, I come back, they pull it open, and it's the full skeleton of our dog. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, oh my God, they didn't finish. They're not done. It's the full skeleton. And I had come to find out later that you then save the bones that you want from the dog or the animal or the person, this happens for people too, that you want to keep. And you save them in an urn, and that urn you pass with the chopsticks. You do not touch it with your hands. And these bones are a remembrance, a way to remember the person, a way to keep a person, a way to keep someone close to you, the parts that you want to keep close to you. And we burn at a higher temperature in America. And that's why when we see the ashes come out of the incinerator, it's just ash. It's just like white and gray ash, piles of almost looks like dirt. And in Japan, they don't do that. They burn at a much, much lower temperature. And they only pretty much burn away the flesh, the muscle, I guess the hair when it comes to animals. And that's what I saw when it was pulled out, was just the bones. A bit freaky. I have to say I was taken aback. Nonetheless, it's a tradition that I've learned to accept. It's something I had to accept with the recent funeral I just went to. And it's something I really feel like I should prepare you for in my own videos when I talk about this segment on death.
According to WorldLifeExpectancy.com results of 2015, the top 10 causes of death in Japan are: number 1, influenza and pneumonia; number 2, stroke; number 3, heart disease; number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 consist of lung, stomach, liver, pancreatic, and colon cancer. Number 9 is listed as other injury, and 10 is suicide. The most alarming death facts in Japan that are unique to Japan are not only negative things, although there is karoshi, which is death from overwork, and the high suicide rate of being 13th in the world. There is also the lowest death rate by gun in the world aside from Iceland and Japan. Also, 3.6% of Japanese die from problems connected to being overweight, bad diet, obesity, or heart problems, whereas in America, it's 32%. As far as the procedures as how a funeral or death is carried out, a Japanese funeral is called a sogi, or a soushiki, and proceeds by having a wake almost as soon as death has taken place, usually happening 8 to 12 hours after time is called. Cremation occurs in 99.8% of all burials and is legally required by almost every prefecture and ward office in Japan. At this point, the typical Japanese funeral is a very secular event, but 91% of funerals in Japan are conducted in the traditional Buddhist manner. Upon being notified or having death be confirmed, relatives often spread small amounts of water upon the lips of the deceased to begin the last ceremony for exiting life and the first ceremony for entering the realm of death. Matsugo no mizu, the water of the last moment, is considered to be a final grant of relief and acceptance that one has passed and that their pain and struggle in this mortal world has ended. Most Japanese homes, at the very least, have tiny Buddhist shrines or Shinto shrines known as kamidana, and after a death occurs, the shrine's doors are closed temporarily, often to keep out evil spirits, the impure, or the malicious dead. Following through with the technical side of things, relatives and authorities are promptly notified, and a death certificate is issued. Funeral arrangements are then traditionally carried out by the eldest son or daughter, and funeral preparations are made by contacting a chosen temple, and a day is chosen for full wake, cremation, and final burial, which at times may differ according to the Chinese lunar calendar, as some days are considered to be too tomobiki. These are days that the astral calendar has stated are easy to be somewhat cursed, as tomobiki literally means to pull friends with you, and in this case, it means to pull them with you to the grave. When attending a Japanese funeral, the proper things to wear for men is a black suit, a white shirt, and a black necktie. Please realize this is a very important piece of etiquette. Wearing a white tie is only done to weddings. Doing so at a funeral would be like you celebrating someone's death. For women, conservative, non-revealing black dresses that should fall below the knees are to be considered. What to bring? The koden, aka condolence gift, is a monetary gift used to help the mourners and close family to pay for the expenses of the funeral. Oftentimes, these need to be given in odd number amounts, as in traditional Shinto and Buddhist practice, such as Ichiman, Sanman, or Goman, which is relatively $100, $300, or $500, considering what the current day market is in money exchange. With all the material aspects of death out of the way, it's time to shed our mortal coil and experience life after death in Japan. With a rich mixture of both Buddhist and Shinto beliefs and traditions, I find I myself and many other expats were very confused with how exactly religion was approached by practicing Japanese. In the most basic and simplistic form of an explanation I can muster, I was told by my wife, who is an astute Buddhist, that Buddhism holds the foundation for the rituals, ceremonies, and traditions in Japan, whereas Shintoism holds the realm of the gods, the deities, the demigods, and the patron saints that give Japan's many branches of Buddhism focus and awareness. Japan is an ethnically homogeneous nation with two major intertwining religions, which share similar after-death beliefs. The population is 51% Shinto, 44% Buddhist, and 1% Christian. The majority of the nation's 128 million people practice aspects of both the Shinto and Buddhist faiths and hold various after-death beliefs. Shinto after-death beliefs. The Shinto religion teaches that every human has an eternal soul or spirit. After death, it is believed that the spirits inhabit the other world, where deities reside. There is not one other world, but several, including Taka Mano Hara, heaven, where the principal deities reside, Yomi, the underworld and domain of the Divine Mother of Japan, and Tokoyo, located somewhere past the sea. The other world is neither a paradise where the good are rewarded, nor a hell where the bad are punished. It is very much like this world. Shinto ancestor worship. Shinto followers believe that the spirits of their ancestors and kami, which are spirits, can protect them. Kami are not just spirits, but also deities or gods in the Shinto religion. There are kami who personify the wind, rain, and mountains, as well as trees, rivers, and fertility. Amaterasu, the sun goddess, is the most revered kami in the religion. Shinto teaches that people's spirits become kami at some point after death, and people worship their ancestral kami at shrines and by holding festivals. The two most important festivals are the Bon Festival, held each summer to comfort the ancestral spirits, and the Shogatsu, or New Year's Day, when people pray to their ancestors for good luck. It is believed that some kami reside on Earth rather than in another world, to look after their descendants and to aid them when possible. Buddhist after-death beliefs. Japanese Buddhists pray to Amida Buddha, who provides the path to the pure land, a paradise where spirits can attain nirvana or enlightenment more easily than other realms. Pure Land Buddhism teaches that after death, the spirit takes a new name to cut ties to its prior human life and embrace a new existence in the afterlife. It is also believed that after the body is cremated, the spirit starts a 49-day spiritual journey to reach its destination, which frees it from any bounds to the physical world. The Pure Land is not the only destination where a spirit can journey to, but it is the most preferred place. Japanese Buddhist afterlife legends. Some Japanese Buddhists believe that when they die, they must cross the Sanzu River to enter the afterlife. The river has 3 crossings. Those who lived good lives can cross a bridge. The spirits of people who lived ordinary lives can cross at a shallow path. However, those who lived bad lives are compelled to walk through the river's waters, which are inhabited by demons and other horrors. At the banks of the Sanzu River stand Datsu Ueba, a female demon, and Ken Eo, a male demon. Datsu Ueba unclothes the dead, and Keno Eo weighs their clothes to measure their karma. Buddhists hold special ceremonies on the days they expect their departed loved ones will be making the crossing. Having covered death in depth, one must ask what, then, is the meaning of life for most Japanese. That answer is just as varied as it would be in any other country. But one overriding aspect that I think Japan holds in higher respect than many of its Western counterparts is sacrifice. Whether it be what some would consider a trivial sacrifice, i.e., working oneself to death for a company, or a commendable sacrifice, the pursuit of protecting and giving a better life to one's own family, I can objectively say, having lived here 10 years plus, that I have seen this and many other self-sacrificing motives be the meaning of life for both religious and secular Japanese, as well as those with or without families, married or single. To encapsulate and generalize the meaning of life for many Japanese people, it is to live to succeed in what they die for. A trait we may not all agree on or share, but can admit is honorable nonetheless.
I hope this series has not made you too depressed or too sad. That was never my intention. With these videos, it's always about objective information and getting back to you on different reports and explanations of things that go on in Japan. With this episode, I did not want to leave you, I guess, gloomy or depressed or sad. What I wanted you to do was to think about death. I think it's something we don't do enough as human beings in general. It's the only thing in life we all share. It's the only thing that we're all headed to. It's a destination that we're all on the way to finding. So we should think more about it through the day. I'm not sure why people try to ignore it, or try to act like it's not going to happen to them, or even try to escape some of the health issues that surround it or can lead to it. I know I myself need to be more conscious, and I do try to think about death often. I think you could probably figure that out by the overall theme of my channel, which tends to be a little bit dark, but I feel like in general people do try to push it out of their mind too much. Even in Japan I see it, and I see people unable to deal with it on a more deep emotional level all over the world. So hopefully today that video gives you a chance to not only explore death in other avenues throughout an international community, but to also think about it more, expand your mind on it, and possibly if there's something in there that you can relate to that can help you out with any death or loss that you have had in your own life or family or with friends, then I'm glad I could help. Until next time, I'm unrested with the questions you requested. This is Dark Side of Japan.